Okay, great. So I went ahead and installed Skype on this machine. That way, instead of trying to share two windows, I can just have Skype right here on this computer. And the nice thing about that is I can just set it to always be on top, and that should make this a little easier. So let's go ahead and connect to your server here. Now, oh, right. Well, let's see, where does Skype like to put files? There we go. Okay. So of course you would use Zoc, but I'm going to use this terminal program to do the same thing. Let me resize this a little bit differently here. Let's see. That should work. All right. And now, can you go ahead and give me the IP address again? Just type it in. Okay, so go ahead and connect also to this server, and when you're connected, type sudo bash and let me know when you've done that. Okay, then go ahead and type screen and just hit enter and let me know when you've done that. Okay, now that you've opened up a screen session, I should see it. There it is, it's 22630, so I can attach to that screen session by typing screen-x 22630. Now, when I'm typing here, can you see it occurring on your screen as well? Okay, great. Now the one thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to resize this screen so that it will fit on my live stream. That will make it smaller on yours, but it'll make it the right size on mine. Okay, so now if I go into something like Vim here, you'll probably notice that it's smaller than what can fit on your screen. Is that correct? Okay, great. Remember, when it's just you, all you have to do is resize it yourself, and you can resize it by just pushing Control A, and then F. And that will force the resize to your screen dimensions. Now don't do it now, of course, because I need it sized the way it is right now for the purpose of this lesson, but just keep that in mind for the future. Okay, so let me go ahead and get back here. All right, so what I want to talk about first of all in this particular lesson is there's two programs that are built into Ubuntu that are important for managing packages, dpkg and apt-get. Now, dpkg is basically used to see what kinds of packages you have installed, and you can also use it to directly manipulate packages. But what I'm going to show you is how to use it to see what you have installed. So let's say you're logged into a server and you want to know if Apache is installed. Well, you could type dpkg-l. That'll show you all the packages that are installed. And then if you put a type bar here, you can type in grep, G-R-E-P, and then the specific thing that you're looking for, in this case Apache. And this will show me all of the packages that are installed that have the word Apache in them. Grep is something that will take whatever the output was and simply only show you those lines that match what you're looking for. It is a very useful tool. Now, the best way that I can demonstrate that is to go ahead and create a sample file here. So if I create a file called test.txt and I start writing some content in it, just different things. Okay, so I'm going to save that file here, and if I look at that file, I can use the cat command to just show the contents of the file. And now if I only want to look at certain lines in the file that contain certain things, I can use grep. So for example, if I want to see all the lines that contain the word is, I can grep for the word is. And it will, now all the lines contain is, but it'll also highlight the examples that do in fact contain is. If I do a search for name, it'll show me only those lines that contain name. And if I want, I can search case insensitive so that uppercase and lowercase doesn't matter by using grep-i. And I can search for my, and it'll show any that have the word my in them, or and so on. So grep is a very important tool to use. Now I want to see you try with the file that I showed you. So here's test.txt. I want you to try viewing some of the contents of the file and using grep to limit the output only to what you're specifying. Okay, so the other thing that you can do with grep is you can do grep-v. And if you do -v, that means you're excluding certain content. So if I wanted to show the lines that don't contain Nick, I would do this. And like this. This will show me the lines that do not contain Nick. And if I want, I can mix options together. I can have grep-vi with a lowercase n, and it'll still catch any lines that don't contain nick. And the order of the options doesn't matter. IV is the same thing. Okay, so this is an example of what is called piping output. And that's what the pipe bar is all about. So we have a command, we take the output and we pipe it into another command, and we can do that as many times as we want. And by doing that, we can get all kinds of interesting effects. So for example, if I type dpkg-l, it would show me all the packages that are installed. If I want to, I can search for just those packages that contain Apache. And now if I really want to, I could look at just the packages that contain Apache, but I can grep out those packages that contain libapache. And now it'll strip out that bottom line that said libapache 2. And I can get as complex as I want to be. I could, for example, only look at those lines that contain HTTP server. Notice that I put quotes around that because it's more than one word. So now it'll take out the middle one that says utility programs for web servers. And so you can see that with the right combination of grep, you can look at only specific content of a file, and that can be very useful. All right, so do you have any questions so far about grep? Okay, now another useful command is tail and head. Those are two commands that basically allow you to look at the very beginning of a file or the very end of a file. Now let's go to where your index.html file is, and we'll take a look at it here. And that's the one that says it works, this is the default web page for the web server, etc. Now if we wanted to, we could look at only the top line of that index file by saying head-n1, that means one line, index.html. And now we'll look at just the first line. If we wanted to, we could look at the first two lines with head-n2. Now you show me, how would you get the first three lines of the file? Close, but you've got to put the -n without a space. There you go. How would you get the last two lines from the file? Remember, you have head and tail. Right, exactly. Okay, how would you get the last two lines of the file, but only the line that contains the word body? Right. And the other thing is, if you've already typed a command, all you have to do is push up on your keyboard, and you can cycle through the commands you've already done. So that instead of having to type it all out again, like say I want to do the same thing but I want to grep for the word server, I can just push up, type server, and hit enter, and I don't have to retype the whole command. So let's look at index.html. Now, if I want to grep for, let's say, the word works, I can just push up, then the pipe bar, and grep works. Okay, so you can see that you can mix these different commands together: tail, head, grep, and so on. All right, so this is where this can be kind of interesting. Now, if I want to, I'm going to create a file here called test.txt, and I'm going to put this. In 1 second here. Okay. Now, if I look at this file using cat, I can see it here. I can use grep to look for certain words, for example, like I've shown you. But there's another nice tool here called awk. Now, awk is a very powerful tool. Now, just to show you how powerful it is, I'm just going to go ahead and do a quick demonstration here. So, oops. Take a look at that. I actually made the HTML file from that single text file, and if I view the source here, you'll see that by mixing together awk along with the other commands, you can do some very interesting things here. So let me explain how awk works. When you pipe the output from a command into awk, you first of all push -F, which is the field separator, and you specify what character is separating one field from another, in this case a comma. Then after that, you place within a string of quotes something that looks like this. And then inside of this section, you can use $1 to refer to the very first element, and $2 to refer to the second element. So if I just do this and I say print $1, oops, I have to cat test.txt and then pipe it into this. You'll see that I'll just get the first names. If I change that to print $2, I'll just get the last names. I can also place strings of text in here as well. So I can put a space in between $1 and $2 and get the full name without the comma. Or I can flip the order and do something like this. Or I could even turn it into something that can be useful in a web page, like I could say something like this. Any questions on that? Okay, so now you try. Just use test.txt along with awk and try to do some creative reformatting of the content using awk. Okay, now a couple things here, just for yeah, keep practicing. Okay, so one thing here to keep in mind is that if you have something like this one, let's see. Yeah, so here you basically have your string of text, which is first name equals, and then you have $1, and then you have a space, and then you have your second string. You can actually just put this space into the second string right here like that, and make it a little easier to read. Okay, so let me show you another practical example of where this comes in handy. I'm going to recreate test.txt now with something new. I'm going to have some basic HTML here. Let's see, how about this? I'm going to rename it to test.html. Okay, so if I load up this test.html page here, I have my first name here and my last name there. Now, if I use awk, I can do something like this. Notice that for the field separator here, I'm actually using the entire HTML tag. Oops. This gets a little tricky because when you use special characters like these less than sign and greater than sign, sometimes you have to put a backslash in front of those characters so that it will work properly. And that's a little interesting. All right, why is it not liking that? Oh, I don't have a space in front of my awk, that's why. Or I mean in front of my dash F, I didn't see that. Okay, there we go. So now you'll see that by using awk the way I just did, I kind of stripped out the first h1 tag, and now I can take this and send it into awk with the last h1 tag, and then in doing so I can actually grab the content of I can basically strip out the HTML and get only the content that I want. In this case, if I only want the first name, so this is one of the uses of awk and all of these other command line tools, is that you can oftentimes use them in order to strip out content you don't want and reformat the content that you do want. And once I have that, I could actually just go ahead and make an entirely new HTML page if I want to. But let's do an example where I get the first name and the last name, because this is the first name. And now I can do something like this. And now I'm going to put everything that's between Carl and Harold. So I'm just going to put and now the last thing that I need to do is I can use a single less than character as the field separator here. And that way I can get everything on the left of it. So I can just go back to this command and run another awk-f, and I'll use the less than character, and I'll print what is $1. And now I have the name, and now I can just go ahead and I'll make this look like a nicer HTML here. And I'll put that into test2.html. And so now this is what I started with. This is test.html, but with a single command I've transformed that into that. And this does come in very useful at times. Like for example, if you get let's say a spreadsheet or something similar, and you need to use that in order to create content, with a good understanding of how to use these commands, you can do very rapid tasks, and that can come in very handy. I mean, I personally use these commands a lot, and it saves the work of having to write out a whole program to do it. I mean, think about it. If I was to write a program that did what you just saw, there's no way I would get it done that quickly. I would have to, write out the whole program and test it as I go, or I can just use these great command line tools and get these things done very quickly. All right, so now I want to see you try. So start by creating a file that you want to use, and then experiment with it. Just try out your own ideas. Now to create a file, just type cat and then a greater than sign, and then the name of the file you're going to create. And then when you're done writing the file, press Control D. So try it out. Okay, so there's another way that you can use grep, which is very helpful, which is, let's say that we are in this directory, and we know that one of these files contains some text, like let's say the word stuff, and we don't know which one. We can type grep -l stuff with an asterisk at the end, and the asterisk denotes that we're going to search all the files, and it will tell us which file contains the word stuff. Now, if you want to actually see the line of text that contains it, you can just do away with the -l, and then you'll be able to see the actual line of text in the file that contains it. And you can, of course, also do -i to do case insensitive. And so, for example, names.html contains nik. All of these files contain the word is at some point. And if I wanted to, I could then take this output and send it into grep again and just look for the word Carl, and then I'll just get this line in names.html that contains Carl. So that's another way that you can use grep, is to do searches through large files. And even if you have a subdirectory here, and now if I do grep for Carl in any of these in any of these files in this directory, notice that I won't see the file in the subdirectory. But if I put grep-r, which means recursively search the subdirectories, now it will also find the subdir/example.txt. And now if I want to see just the listing of the files, and I want to do it case insensitive, I can do grep-ilr for insensitive, list files, and search recursively, and it'll show me all of the files that contain that. Now that can be very useful when you're writing code and you have a certain function, let's say, and you want to know, okay, what are all the files that use that function? Because maybe it's a function that you're thinking now it's obsolete, and you're thinking, no, I don't think I use that function anywhere. And so you can say to yourself, okay, well, let me search for that function, and then it'll show you all the files that contain it. And here's something cool. Like here, I can see all the files that contain the word Carl. Let's say that I want to edit all of those files. I can type vim-p, and then I can put backticks around the grep command, and what those backticks will do is it will send the actual file names into Vim so that I can actually edit the files. See that? Now I have all of the files open in tabs that contain the word Carl, and I can edit them as I please, and then when I'm done I can just quit Vim. So that's sometimes very useful. Like I might have a certain function or class or whatever the case is that I need to edit, or maybe I'm searching for some kind of some text that I want to change and I don't know where it is, or maybe it's in 10 different files and I want to change it for all 10 files, or I want to open all 10 files for editing. That's where grep-ilr comes in very handy. Because with this one command, you will find all the files in all the subdirectories of where you are that contain what it is that you're looking for. And then if you put a vim with a -p and backticks, you can go ahead and edit all of those files automatically. All right, so here we have all of these different files, and if we look at one, for example, let's say testing.txt, we have some content here. So I want you to show me an example of using grep-ilr and also using Vim in order to make that work. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and turn off the live stream now. I hope you enjoyed the lesson, and I'll be on Skype, so I'll talk to you there.